Somewhere you find that they look like the same.
Not necessarily tribal or regional.
But I have said that.
All right, thank you for staying with us. You're watching Daybreak on Trust TV. Time to take a look at the dailies on Daybreak, and we'll begin with the Daily Trust newspaper that has a kicker before the lead. It says, job racketeering ripples at Character Commission over reps delayed report. On page 4, it has the riders that says, Integrity Commissioner's alleged plot to kill report. We are in Sambisa, rendered redundant FCC directors. You have allegations baseless. Commission chair, our probe report undergoing routine legislative process, says reps. You have above the lead story also, Media Trust goes in search of missing radio tower. You have also that on page 3, and then appeal court sacks Plateau governor. 3 other PDP lawmakers on page 12. Uproar over Sanwo-Olu's 3.75 billion naira perfume and rechargeable fans on page 37. Now, below the lead story, I don't miss being president, says former President Buhari. On page 5, you have also Niger boat accident, 9 bodies recovered 4 days after. On page 13, Nigeria UAE flights resume soon after 14 months, says federal government. These are the main stories on the front pages this morning.
The Guardian newspaper, the major story there says Lagos, others caught in fiscal recklessness amid huge legacy debt. We have the state's continuous budget lines where there is different plans on what's going on. We have the Lagos Rail Mass Transit requiring about 218 billion naira. The bulletproof SUV for COS, we have 44.75 million naira. Benue government vehicles for South officials, about 2 billion naira. Residents registration agency, 7.99 billion naira. There's fragrance for governor's office, 7.475 million naira. The ad hoc chartered plane, 400 million naira. Oyo allocations allocates millions to purchase 55 fire extinguishers. It would cost about 43.5 million naira. 200 million naira for legal fees for elections. There's a lot of money there. So below that, we have caustic retirement speeches reflective of discontent in the judiciary. You find that on page 4. Concerns over Tinubu's flurry of appointments and reversals. You find this on page 6. The appeal court sacks Plateau governor and asks INEC to withdraw the certificate of return. Magu breaks silence after 4 years. X-rays, corruption, war. Amend the CBN Act to insulate it from politics. We have top military officers mourn as ex-COAC Nicoas Chris Ale passes at 79. A sad situation there. The belt there, it says Rivers, Bayelsa oil communities lament neglect and failure to implement the PIA. These are some of the stories on the Guardian newspaper this morning. All right, we'll move to the next newspaper there. We have the Punch newspaper. It says, the major story says, Plateau governor's removal, APC, PDP clash as appeal court sacks third opposition governor. It says the court orders INEC to retrieve PDP certificate of return. Lalong hails judgment, ruling party using judiciary to intimidate. Silence opposition. That's according to PDP, LP, and NNPP. At the top of the page there, it says service extension. The federal government owes 600 teachers 23 months salary arrears. Inflation jumps for 24 times in 25 months. That's according to report We have the president or former president Buhari saying that I don't miss presidency much. There's a pictorial of the Israel-Hamas war happening. We have US condemned the school attack and deaths hit 14,000. Adeleke backtracks on acting CJ and APC knocks the governor. You find this on page 28. Panel indicts the OAUTH ex-CMD of massive job racketeering. Now, these are some of the stories that you would find on the Punch newspaper this morning. Next, we take a look at the Business Day newspaper. The major story that says, for Nigeria's cash-strapped state, it's business as usual. There is a big story of Afrobeats outgrow local fan base on pricey show tickets. We have Amapiano gains about dominance as Afrobeats go global. How Nigerian artists rank on global streaming charts, which is a good thing. There's a lot of recognition from the outside world, to Nigeria. We have Northwest governors seek AFDB support to unlock agri potential. You find this on page A3. We have NSIA unveils a $500 million renewable investment platform. Partners IFC are saying. Now, these are some of the stories on the Business Day newspaper today. And with that, of course, we will now go ahead to review the papers that we have for you. And as usual, joining us this Monday morning is Suleiman Ubangaya, the CEO of Sky Limits Media Group, an editor and former deputy president of the Nigerian Guild of Editors. Good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
All right, let's start with the front page of the Daily Trust newspaper, there where it's saying that there is ripples of character. What's your take on what's happening about the job racketeering? I mean, we've had this situation and allegation coming out tons of times.
Well, you see, the premise of our constitution in such a situation where Nigeria will be a just and egalitarian society that will be fair and just to every segment, every component of the federation. It wanted to avoid a situation where the majority will overwhelm the minority, like the minority tribes. There was a fear that the majority tribes, predominantly the Hausas, Hausa's plan is grouped into one, and then Yorubas, Igbos, could maybe override the minority tribes. So it came up with the Federal Character Commission that is envisaged to ensure fairness in terms of recruitments. Unfortunately, what we've been seeing in Nigeria is a direct opposite of the mandate saddled on the Federal Character Commission by the Constitution. We've seen lopsidedness in employment, in recruitments, either at the political or even the civil service levels. So unfortunately, rather than the leaders, the chairman and the commissioners to work in unison to ensure their mandate is discharged appropriately, they are involved in infighting. And another sad aspect of it is the investigation by the National Assembly. Typically, no report has come out about 3 months after the investigation was carried out, and now there have been allegations as to whether the members have been silenced by the chairman or somebody atop the Federal Character Commission. So these are some of the issues, and it's a very fundamental matter, because you see, part of the reason why security has continued to deepen, insecurity has continued to deepen, is because of the sense of hopelessness induced in our youth, occasioned by the fact that many of them will go to school, do all the struggle. At the end of the day, they won't be able to get engaged, to be able to get a job. We saw a trending video of someone who graduated 13 years ago, who said in this 13 years he has not been able to secure even a clerical job. So he ended up burning his credentials publicly. You know, the video is trending, probably you have seen it.
On social
So
media.
these are the kind of things, unless you are a son or daughter of someone, you can hardly be able to secure a job, especially in the public sector. The Federal Character Commission, unfortunately, is supposed to address these kinds of injustice and lopsidedness. Sadly,
The commission
based on the
itself
accusation, it's
is
you know,
smart in
exactly, is deeply
politics.
involved in the kind of things that is meant to prevent.
We saw the ad hoc committee, even at some point recording coming out public to show us the process, how it started, how they were busy chiding these people to say, okay, explain what happened here and all that. So Nigerians had a lot of hope, but then everything just went quiet, like you said earlier. So at this point, what needs to be done? What should the federal government and the Nigerian people, what do they need to do? Nigerians are already angry with the government, saying that it has to be someone that knows someone. There are a lot of people out there that after finishing school for 10 years cannot afford to. While some situations we see the daughters and sons of who go abroad, they don't even suffer the school system that is happening, the failing school system in Nigeria, and then they come back and then they secure jobs so easily and quickly.
You see, it is not for nothing that we are running a three-system constitutional democracy. We have the judiciary, we have the executive, and the legislature. The legislature is meant to serve as a check on the executive, especially recklessness of the executive. But sadly, in the legislature, I do not even limit it to the current legislature, that is the national, Senate and the House of Reps. Of course, at the state levels also, it has been unsavory, tales all over. They are the ones particularly that are cornering most of the job offers, that exist. Whenever there is a job offer anywhere, especially the so-called lucrative parastatals, you find that in most cases, and I'm very serious about this, when I was editor of Leadership newspaper, I remember documenting it, and I was summoned by the Senate to explain, why, and I did explain. This thing has been there, and that was 11 years ago. And yet it has continued to happen. It has continued to even get worse, So I think the danger here is that we are inducing hopelessness. Those that should, reprimand, the violators of our constitution are the ones now perpetrating it themselves. So it's a sense of hopelessness, honestly. Probably Nigerians need to do more in terms of voicing out their anger as legitimately as possible.
All right, well, let's take a look also at another story here that has bothered so many people, especially on social media. I think that this is a story that has been trending as well, about Oprah over Sanwo-Olu's 3.7 billion naira perfume rechargeable fans approval. So the story goes this way, that there's been approval of 7.5 million naira to replace liquid fragrance in the office of the governor, Babajide Sanwo-Olu. Also, you have this 3 billion naira to purchase rechargeable fans for the office of his deputy, Obafemi Hamzat. And that's not all. You also have other allocations that have been made. So, for instance, over 440 million naira for the purchase of new Lexus LX600 bulletproof sport utility vehicle for use in the pool of office of the chief of staff. You also have this 18.5 million naira for the supply and distribution of 2,000 Noela chickens across the local governments in the state. Approval for 152 million naira for the restoration of water supply at Idugara Palace. Well, so this is just to mention a few of the allocations that we are seeing, but for many people, this is outrageous. At a time like this, when Nigerians are dealing with all kinds of, economic difficulty, inflation on one hand, unemployment on the other hand, and so many, forex, it's the foreign exchange is on another level and so on, and we are having this kind of allocation, budgetary allocation in the state government. I mean, what's the process really? How do these things happen? Like, 7.5 million naira for liquid fragrance. And I'm wondering what kind of fragrance this is.
Why not they use straw with that? I think it's a bit cheaper.
That is if they are sensible, they are so insensitive. I'm sorry, I have to say it as it is. But Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu is someone I honestly hold in a very high esteem. In the course of the last 4 years of his governance of Lagos, he brought seriousness and commitment, to governance in general. So I'm shocked to hear this kind of things happening under his watch. But then, one will not be entirely surprised because the insensitivity happening not just in Lagos, in practically all the states of the Federation is so terrible. It bespeaks of, leaders who do not care about the followership, who are completely detached from the reality of everyday life.
I'm going to interject. Sometimes you get a sense of, is it that the people are blowing things out of proportion? Or is this really outrageous? I mean, for the life of me, I cannot understand how 7.5 million naira will go into buying liquid fragrance. I just cannot comprehend it. So is it that Nigerians are blowing things out of proportion, or this is actually outrageous?
No, it is true. Nigerians are not blowing it out of proportion because these things are not concocted by anybody. They were rooted very deeply in the budget of the government of Lagos State. So really, I think if there are people who are blowing it out of proportion are the framers of the budget in the governor's office. And I think Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu needs to be very, very careful, because the next 4 years or 3.5 years, because they have clocked about 6 months now, is going to be very fundamental. If he does not care, he stands the risk of wiping away every legacy he has tried to build.
And then again, of course, 3 billion naira for the purchase of rechargeable fans.
That one is the most irresponsible. I just have to say, you God, please permit me. What do they need rechargeable fans for? They have generators.
Perhaps maybe when the ACs goes off, if it ever
then
happens.
why not work on the power sector then,
exactly.
in order to... All right, these things, just like you said, have been going on. We have been seeing it unravel right before our eyes. I mean, immediately the president made his speech, his inaugural speech, where subsidy was announced, gone, and the next day Nigerians started feeling the impact of that hardship immediately. We saw the new House of Representatives in Kebbi State also were issued furniture allowance. When Nigerians were asking, how will that help your work? So right now, the question is, we are suffering, and you people keep bringing what you want to do. And in that thing, the senator, I think one senator came out to defend the SUV, saying, no, it is part of their job description. And then when they finish, when they're leaving the office, they're supposed to submit the SUVs back. But we know that there have been situations where a governor would come, or a president or someone would resume office, and they would claim that there has been an empty office, like someone was leaving the office and he packed everything.
We know they never submit it. I mean, let's be frank. Wasn't it in the National Assembly, just the Ninth Assembly, that we are now having to make fresh budgetary allocation for the new set of assembly members, the 10th Assembly, to purchase furniture, equipment, and television sets and so on the grounds that the members of the 9th Assembly, when they were leaving, they left with everything because they felt it was bought for them, something like that.
Yeah, actually there is in the Financial Act there is a provision for depreciation, and that's the one they are taking undue advantage of. In the National Assembly, they set it at 25% per year. So, by the time it is 4 years, at the end of the tenure, it will be 0%. I mean, it will be 100%. That will mean the vehicles will not have value anymore. So, what that will mean will be that the legislators will be entitled to purchase them practically at 0 kobo. and go with them. So when the next assembly comes in, we'll be experiencing the same kind of situation. And ridiculously, the senator you are making reference to, and of course practically every other legislator, will tell you they will always cite an example with the executive that even directors at the federal level have SUVs and a fleet of cars. But the issue is there are different arms of government. If you are interested in those kind of things, why don't you seek a job in the executive branch, or get an appointment.
With regards to this section of the financial, is it the Financial Act you mentioned now? Shouldn't we be looking at reviewing that section or that provision of the law, because apparently it appears that it has been abused, isn't it?
Yes, the legislators enact these laws simply to favor themselves, and that is the biggest tragedy in Nigeria. These are people that should protect the interests of Nigerians. They should be the closest people. The legislator or legislators are supposed to be the closest people to every segment of the citizenry. Unfortunately, what they do largely is taking advantage of us, enacting laws that favor them and maybe members of their families only. Like this depreciation kind of thing. It doesn't happen even in the civil service. In the civil service, of course, maybe after using a particular vehicle for many years, you may be asked to pay a percentage. But in their case, they straight it in such a way that by the time they finish 4 years, it will be zero. The value will now be zero, which means you are entitled to go with it without paying even 1 naira. That is what happened in the case of the last assembly that you are making reference to. The furniture, everything. I remember Senator Adams Oshomile condemning the former legislators who cutted everything. He said he met an empty office and he had to use his own personal resources to furnish his office. Even DSTV, everything, was purchased anew by him. So it's because of this depreciation law that they take advantage of, and it's such a shame that even carpets, everything, will now be carted away by a senator, a House of Reps member, whose salary...
Who, after all, has no need for it anyways.
Exactly, they have no need for it, and they've been getting tens of millions monthly.
Now, and reports recently came out to say that these people still get pensions even after leaving office, the governors and all that. So that's topic for another day, General. Thank you so much, Suleiman Ubagaya, the CEO of Sky Limit Media Group. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
You're welcome. Thank you.